Fantastic. So welcome everyone to implementing psychological safety. And, you know, I'm going to be honest here, this is a new-ish topic for me to become aware of. Approximately 1 year ago, one of our existing ongoing clients, they said, hey, Luke, can you teach us about psychological safety? And for the coaches and trainers on the call today, you know the answer is always yes, and then you figure it out, right? So I spent, you know, a couple of days doing a lot of research on psychological safety, and it's like, wow, it totally blew my mind. Now, as a professional coach, where I spend a lot of time working with one-on-one and in group coaching, the characteristics, shall we say, or the process of psychological safety is very, very important in one-on-one coaching conversations. And, you know, so as a coach, I was kind of, you know, unconsciously already doing it. Yet, you know, in a group environment inside of an organization, I saw there's a huge gap in terms of where most teams are and where they could be creating this safe environment that allows people to open up and share and express themselves more fully. So we're going to explore some definitions today. Let me share the screen, guys. Let's jump straight into it, shall we? So, by the way, all of these webinars that we've been doing since lockdown about 13 months ago, you can find them on our YouTube channel. Just search Coachology into YouTube. And we also have a leadership Facebook group called 60 Second Leadership. So you can search that in Facebook as well. I'll send an email through a little bit later with a link to the recording, plus links to these YouTube and the Facebook page. So what are we going to cover? What is psychological safety and why is it more important than ever? Developing greater engagement with all of your teams, creating a trusting space to share ideas and ask questions, right? So we want to create this safe environment that increases engagement. That's it. Think about it. If we're not in a safe environment, we're not going to open up and we're not going to express ourselves. We're not going to ask questions and we're not going to share ideas because it's not safe. We also want to create a safe space for others to share concerns that they might have or possibly even admit mistakes. Solving old problems and new problems, existing problems with teamwork and synergy. And at the end of the day, guys, your team are not shy. They simply don't feel safe. And we'll expand on that a little bit. Implementing effectively psychological safety and as much as we can squeeze in 1 hour. So here are some of the companies where I've already been delivering this psychological safety program. It's normally a 2-hour webinar. We have an extended version that I'm teaching to corporates all around the world, all the way from America to Saudi Arabia to Australia and of course all throughout Asia as well. So please rest assured this is truly world-class content that we're discovering together today. Let's take a look at the definition first. Psychological safety is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas and questions, concerns, or mistakes. Right, and Amy Edmondson, she is, I guess, the creator of this this content, this philosophy, if you like. She's written books, she's done TED Talks. We're going to have a look at a quick little video from her right now because she gives some really nice examples of, you know, where we could better be implementing psychological safety. So let's just go through it one more time, guys, because it's simple and it's so important. Psychological safety is a belief, right? So a belief is kind of unconscious, right? So it's kind of like our belief system that we feel safe, that we will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up, for voicing out with an idea or a question, right? Concerns or mistakes. So in other words, we want to create an environment for our teams that is safe for them to speak up with ideas, ask questions, share a concern like, oh, hey boss, I'm not sure about this. What do you think? right? And then admitting mistakes, because those mistakes will surface eventually. Better that you create a safe environment than people can say, yep, I messed up. Yep, hey boss, I'm sorry, my bad, I made a mistake. Because then at least you have the opportunity to fix it and resolve it. So I'm just going to quick push a couple of buttons here, guys. I'm going to optimize the video clip. It's about 3 minutes. So let's hear from Amy herself about the definition of psychological safety.
A nurse on the night shift in a busy urban hospital notices that the dosage for a particular patient seems a bit high. Fleetingly, she considers calling the doctor at home to check the order. Just as fleetingly, she recalls his disparaging comments about her abilities last time she called him at home. All but certain the dose is in fact fine. The patient is, after all, on an experimental protocol which justifies the high dose. She heads for the cart, gets the med, and goes toward the patient's bed. Quite far from the urban hospital, a young pilot in a military training flight notices that his senior officer might have made a crucial misjudgment. He lets the moment go by. Far from both of those stories, a senior executive who has recently been hired by a very successful consumer products company to join the top management team has grave reservations about a planned takeover. New to the team, feeling like an outsider, everyone else is so enthusiastic about the plan, he doesn't say anything. These are 3 episodes of workplace silence when voice was necessary. Voice would have been helpful. Now, you may think, if I were in their shoes, I wouldn't do that. Or you may be aware, as I am, of just how often this happens in the modern workplace. So, I've been fascinated by this problem for a long time. Why does this happen? It's quite simple, actually. It turns out that no one wakes up in the morning and jumps out of bed because they can't wait to get to work today to look ignorant, incompetent, intrusive, or negative, right? No, on average, we'd prefer to look smart and helpful and, positive and helpful. So the good news about all this is that it's very easy to manage, right? Don't want to look ignorant? Don't ask questions. Don't want to look incompetent? Don't admit weakness or mistake. Don't want to look intrusive? Don't offer ideas. And if you don't want to look negative, by all means, don't criticize the status quo. Okay. Now, this strategy, the good news about this very successful strategy is that it works for self-protection. The psychologists call this impression management. And there's a great deal of evidence that we're quite good at it. We learn how to do this sometime in grade school. By the time we're working adults, it's all but second nature. Have you ever had a question and you look around and you don't ask it? No one else seems to be asking. Maybe you're supposed to know. You think, I'll figure it out later, right? So why does this matter? It matters because every one of these moments, every time we withhold, we rob ourselves and our colleagues of small moments of learning. And we don't innovate. We don't come up with new ideas. We don't. We are so busy, unconsciously for the most part, managing impressions that we don't contribute to creating a better organization. The nurses don't call. The pilot doesn't speak up. The executive doesn't say anything. So the good news is that not every workplace is, in fact, this way. There are some workplaces where people absolutely wake up in the morning, if not eager, at least willing and ready to take the interpersonal risks of learning. I call these special workplaces ones that have psychological safety. Now, I'll define psychological safety as a belief that it's absolutely okay, in fact, it's expected, to speak up with concerns, with questions, with ideas, with mistakes. And
okay. So thanks, Amy. So this is what we're talking about, guys, here. So again, just one more quick time. It's a belief that no one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. And as Amy said, it's expected that we do speak up with ideas, questions, or concerns, or mistakes, because if we don't, everything will stay the same. And how can we innovate? How can we deal with this uncertainty in the economy, in the business, and the world right now if we continue to do the same stuff again, and again? And even more importantly, in the world in which we live in right now, we're in our third lockdown in Bangkok here right now. I know you guys have had many lockdowns in Malaysia, and other countries have been more fortunate, such as Vietnam and so on. But do you think that creates uncertainty with our teams? Absolutely, huge levels of uncertainty with our team. So it's even more important that you, as the leader or the business owner or wherever you are in the organization, create that safe space that allows your team to freely speak up with ideas, questions, concerns, and mistakes. So let's take a look at how we can actually do that, especially in the world in which we're living in right now. As always, guys, I invite you to pop any questions or comments into the chat box. I'll be asking for your input as well. I want to learn from you guys as well. So, why is psychological safety important? Firstly, it creates a safe space that encourages others to share, right? Encourages others to speak up. It increases trust, creativity, and productivity, right? Think about it. What Amy said there a moment ago was each time someone does speak up or share or whatever, there's a little learning. There's a little nugget of gold, a little diamond of learning, of information that will help the team grow. So each time someone contributes to a team, whether it's a small team of 3 or 4 or a massive team of 200, each time people are speaking up, they're offering a fresh and different perspective or point of view. That is data. The more data you have as a leader, the more effective decisions that you can make. So you need to create that safe environment that people feel safe to share without fear of ridicule or punishment or humiliation, especially in a group environment. Feeling safe, secure, and being able to work without the fear of negative consequences, even if we make a mistake. So this is why psychological safety is important. So check this out, guys. You've heard me talk about the comfort zone probably 100 times on these webinars. And you've all heard the comfort zone story, right? So over here where we feel safe and in control. Now, the challenge with the comfort zone, as I'm sure you've heard, is nothing grows there. So if you want to achieve that next level of success, or you want your team to achieve that next level of success, whatever that is, it could be simply the KPI, it could be a project success, it could be increase in sales or customer service, whatever it is, to achieve that next level of success means that we need to do something different, something unknown, and something unfamiliar. And it just so happens that that is outside of the comfort zone. So when supporting your teams, you're going to support them to move from their comfort zone out into the fear zone. So they'll be lacking self-confidence, right? They'll be coming up with excuses and reasons not to take that step. And they'll be very strongly affected by the opinions of others, right? Like, oh, don't say anything. Oh, don't say that to the boss. No, you can't do that. So we move from the fear zone then into the learning zone, where you deal with challenges and problems, right? You acquire new skills. You continually learn and grow and evolve yourself. And you are extending or expanding your comfort zone, which is an ongoing journey, by the way. It doesn't stop regardless of how senior you are or how old you are or how many years you've been on the planet. It's a continuous journey to eventually arrive at the growth zone, where you are finding and aligned with your purpose. You're living your dreams, you're setting new goals, of course, and you're easily able to conquer and overcome objectives. Now, why is this important, guys? Is, well, psychological safety is supporting your team to move from their comfort zone through to that growth zone, right? Because think about it. Outside of the comfort zone is unknown and unfamiliar, right? It's like walking around in a dark room. They've not been there before. They don't know what's going on. So your job as an awesome leader is to, metaphorically take them by the hand and gently guide them out through those fear, learning, and into the growth zone. And guess what? Because if they don't feel safe, if you don't create that safe environment, they're going to be like, no, 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 no. It's nice here. I'm just going to stay in the comfort zone because I'm scared to go out there. I don't know. There's too much uncertainty. Let me stay right here, right? And I'm sure we've all had experiences like that, either with yourself or with your teams. So this is what is not psychological safety. These kind of behaviors here, this is not psychological safety, where we ridicule or make fun of other people. We shame them. We blame them. We criticize them strongly, where we try to manipulate them to kind of control things. We bully them, right? Bullying just doesn't happen in high school. It happens in corporate offices all around the world. Excessive sarcasm. People from Australia, generally, we're quite sarcastic. We have a dry sense of humor, and that can be taken too far in a corporate environment. Playing favorites. So favorites is like you have one of your team is like the golden child. So you give them all the fun projects, you praise them continuously, and they're like number one, and everyone else is like, that is not psychological safety. Anger and finger pointing. You. Not cool. Too much arrogance, kind of like, I know everything. Right? If I walk around thinking that I know everything, well, I'm not going to listen to new ideas. So if I'm like, I know everything, you can't tell me everything, that's not creating a safe environment, because that arrogance will lead to like, why don't you know the answer to that? Come on, you've been working here for 15 years. You should know that by now. That is not psychological safety. Right, before we go here, was there a question there? Nope, we've just got oh, wow, we've got people from all over. So let's take a look here, guys. What is psychological safety? Mutual respect, right? Regardless of your level in the organization, we want to create an environment of mutual respect where, up and down, so boss to subordinate to the boss of the boss, and also sideways in other departments or other divisions, we want to create an environment where we have mutual respect. You see, with mutual respect, you can still disagree with someone, yet because of your respect, you can appreciate that they have a different point of view. That's okay, right? Psychological safety is not about sitting around in the circle and singing kumbaya and hugging and doing all of this kind of weird stuff every day. This is not psychological safety. It's simply to create an environment that encourages people to share. Appreciation of different perspectives, right? That is psychological safety. Open sharing, right? So, I'm really good at asking stupid questions, right? What do I mean by that? Is if I don't know something, whether I'm speaking with my wife or a client or a partner or someone, if I don't understand something, I'm not going to like, I'm just going to be ignorant and like stupid, and I'm going to ask the question, because I know it's more important to be able to openly share and ask questions if I don't know. Because then once I know, then I can, make a more informed decision. Constructive brainstorming, that's psychological safety. direct and respectful communication. And this is what I mean. Psychological safety is not, wrapping everyone up in cotton wool to make sure that no one hurts their feelings or whatever. We still need to run the business, guys. We still need to get a profit. And we need to be sustainable. That's how you can keep your 10, 100, 1,000 employees employed next year and beyond this lockdown fiasco, right? So you want to be able to have direct communication with respect. So what does that mean? It means being able to give effective feedback, right? Giving effective feedback in the effective, correct way, you're still creating a safe environment. And I'm sure we've done some other webinars before where we shared with you specific techniques on how to deliver effective feedback respectfully without breaking rapport. So check those out, because guess what? If you have this safe environment, you encourage people to talk more directly, to get to the point, to share the things that are at the back of their mind. Patience, right? Because not everyone is at your level, whatever level you perceive yourself to be. So while something might be really simple and easy for you to understand, there might be other people in the organization that don't quite get it. So this is where you need to breathe and practice your own patience, because everyone perceives and understands the world differently. So it's up to you to chill, right? Chill out. Inclusivity, right? So you want to include, especially your team, in some of the decision-making processes, some of the brainstorming, or some of the problem solving. Intelligent risk taking, right? So it's actually okay to take risks, right? As long as we do it with intelligence, right? And as long as you're implementing some agile leadership principles. So agile leadership is simply to be flexible and adaptable to the current situation and to make decisions promptly. Now, think about this. As you have created this safe environment that allows people to share ideas, ask questions, raise concerns or mistakes, if you've created that, then you can take an intelligent risk. And if something isn't working out, something that you can't see because you've got 100 things going on, you've created that safe environment where your team comes up and says, psst, boss, psst, there's a problem over here. Can you come and take a look? Right? So you haven't created this fearful environment where everyone is shaking, like, oh, we can't say anything to the boss. He's going to ridicule me in front of the rest of the team. No. You want to create that environment where people do come to you with any concerns or possible mistakes or ideas. Non-judgmental, right? This is a big one. Right. So, again, everyone is at their different level of development and their leadership and their creativity, their intelligence, their EQ, and so on. So your job as the leader is to be non-judgmental, kind of like a blank piece of paper. Yeah, especially in the coaching conversations that you have with your subordinates, because guess what? When you start judging someone, right? Think about this. You're doing some brainstorming and someone shares an idea, right? And you don't even need to say anything, but you can be judgmental of someone, right? For example, someone gives an idea and you go, guess what? That's a judgment. You didn't say anything, but your physiology certainly told a lot in that message. So guess what? If you're judgmental of people, now they do not feel safe, right? In their mind, they're thinking, oh, when I share an idea, question, concern, or mistake, the boss judges me either by the tone of their voice or their body language or the roll of the eyes, or you know what, next time, I just won't share. I just won't share. And then they just shut down. And so now they're the quiet person sitting at the back of the meeting room, never contributing to any of the conversations. Why? Because they don't feel safe. So as this beautiful little cartoon says, so he's right and he's right. So just because you are right does not mean I am wrong. So one of the biggest tip, guys, if you want to be able to successfully create a safe environment and you want to implement this psychological safety, is you need to check your own ego outside the door. What do I mean by that is you need to be aware that there are things that you don't know that you don't know. And again, regardless of how many years leadership experience you've had, how many PhDs or whatever you have, or how old you are, regardless of any of that, there's always things that you don't know that you don't know, right? So if we look at this example here, basically, when there is mutual respect, when you have this point of view, which happens to be right, and this point of view, which happens to be right in this little example here, then now what you have is you have two pieces of data, two pieces of information that can help you or your team or your organization to make a more conscious, intelligent decision, right? Because there's two data points now. And think about it, if you expand that to 4 people talking about a situation or a problem or a goal or a KPI or a project or whatever it is, that 6 or 9, however you look at it, that represents that project, that thing, whatever that you're working on. Well, as you have 4 people sharing their perspective, their point of view, now you have 4 points of data, 4 pieces of information that now you can together as a team process to be able to come up with the most logical way forward, right? Does this make sense, guys? Yes or yes? Good. So this is interesting. Google published the results of a 2-year study into what makes a great team. The interesting thing was that the answer was not those with the most senior people or the highest EQ or even those that made the least amount of mistakes. That is not what made a great team. Based on the findings of Project Aristotle, Google developed a list of 5 key dynamics that make great teams successful. So the first one here is psychological safety. Team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. So vulnerable means they're simply open. They're open to take a risk. They're open to throw that wild idea out there because they know that they're not going to be judged or humiliated or punished by openly sharing. So that's number 1. Number 2, dependability. Team members get things done on time and meet Google's high bar for excellence, right? So whether it's Google or whether you're, a 3-person team, you want to be able to depend on each other. And that can be simply getting things done on time, whether it's a simple task or that research or the deliverable to the client, whatever it is, to be able to depend on each other, that clearly creates more trust, right? Now think about this for a moment, guys, on this dependability and this whole concept here of psychological safety. A lot of it is unconscious. In other words, it's outside of our day-to-day awareness. It's almost just like a feeling that we have. And so when we think about dependability here, let's say I've got Mark, and Mark is my colleague. And Mark always sends his part of the project to me late. Mark is consistently late. He comes to meetings late. He sends information that I need late. His part of the project is late. So kind of unconsciously, I've now developed this lack of trust or lack of dependability on Mark because over time he's been consistently unreliable and then therefore someone who I cannot depend on. That doesn't feel safe, right? So if, in simple terms, if you say you're going to do something with your team, then make sure that you do it. if you keep your word, if you be impeccable with your word, as Don Miguel Ruiz says, then you'll create greater safety and greater trust. Structure and clarity. So team members have clear roles, plans, and goals. So basically everyone knows what everyone is doing. It's very clear and it's very structured. Meaning. So work is personally important to team members, right? So it's meaningful to them. And impact. So team members think their work matters to create change, right? So starting at the top here, guys, it starts with psychological safety. Expansion of psychological safety. So here you are, right here in the middle. Your first kind of layer, if you like, of psychological safety will be with your immediate boss or supervisor. And they will hopefully create a safe environment for you. Now, you can probably remember a time in your past, not where you work now. I'm sure where you work now is totally okay. And you probably at some point in the past, you did work with a boss that was would criticize you, right? That would be judgmental of you, that would point the finger and would blame you. Did that feel good for you as a young up and coming leader? Probably not, right? Probably not. So if you are now a supervisor or a leader, please be sure those young people joining your team, people that have just joined the team from another organization, we don't know what their previous boss was like. They may have been in a toxic corporate environment. So they're coming into your team a bit timid and a bit scared because they've just come from this toxic environment. In fact, maybe that's why they left. They realized that it was not healthy for them psychologically to stay in that old environment. So they quit and they resigned. But guess what? They put up with that for 5 years. And now they've joined your team. And you've got a well-established team. You have been creating psychological safety in your team. But that new member of your team, he or she, they don't know that yet. They're not just going to walk up day one and say, oh, beautiful. Yeah, here, let me openly share my ideas and questions and concerns and mistakes. Not going to happen. So it's up to you as the leader to continually develop this psychological safety. So beyond your immediate boss and supervisor, it goes to the team. Then if you're in a larger organization, your team might be part of a specific department or division, depending on how big your org is. And then of course, within the entire organization. So as you grow within your role, you want to make sure that you create that safe environment for your team, for your department. And when you do get to that level of CEO or MD or GM, that you're creating that throughout the organization. So here are some typical situations, guys, in which you can encourage psychological safety. Team meetings, organizational meetings. So team, your immediate team. Organizational teams might be like a monthly meeting or a quarterly meeting. During problem-solving sessions. During brainstorming. What else, guys? Give me, pop it into the chat box, please. What are some other situations where you might see that psychological safety is really, really important? Please drop it into the chat box now. Get those fingers moving, please. All right. Okay, thank you for sharing. Yeah, giving feedback. One of the biggest ones, guys. And please check out those other videos on giving effective feedback. Most simple is ask permission first before giving the feedback. When you say, hey, have you got a couple of minutes for a straight talk? 99% of the time people will go yes, right? So they've given you permission to share the feedback. Yep. So, thanks everyone for sharing. Performance appraisal, coaching, one-on-one meetings, asking ideas and opinions from the team, WIP discussions, permission before the feedback important, working on a project, helping them to learn new things, helping them to discover the things that they don't know that they don't know. Beautiful, guys. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Yep, one-on-ones, sharing of ideas or problems or challenges or mistakes. Speaking up when something feels or something seems a little bit off, you know, like you can't quite articulate it, and it's like, that's a good time to be able to create the safe environment, right? And you've seen it before. You can see someone is deep in thought. They look a little bit concerned. That could be a good time to create a safe space for them, probably one-on-one, and say, hey, I'm just observing. It seems like something is on your mind. Is there anything that you would like to share? Yeah, beautiful. So one of the quickest ways, guys, to, you know, really create an environment of psychological safety is with rapport. And again, you've heard me talk about rapport in many of the webinars before. If this is your first time here at a Coachology webinar, check out our YouTube channel. Rapport, very simply, it's a very soft skill, yet it is essential in leadership conversations, general communication, and especially in coaching conversations. Rapport is the ability to create trust and relationship. It's the basis for good communication and good relationships. What do we mean by good? Is that ability to express ourselves freely and fully. And it allows you to connect with people and gain a sense of trust and respect, right? So, you know, just because you're the leader or just because you're the boss, hey, it says boss here, can't you see it? Do what I say. You're not as I do, just do as I say. Not cool, guys. That might have worked 20 or 30 years ago. It certainly doesn't work now. So again, whatever level of the organization you are at, you want to be able to build rapport with people. It's a very soft skill. It's an ongoing skill. Just because you have it once does not mean you have it forever. So it's always a little bit of a work in progress, just like creating that safe environment. Very quickly, here are 8 quick tips on how you can build rapport with your teams. Bring up a mutual interest, right? A football team or a cat person or a dog person, whatever it is. Listen, guys, listen is a big one. Listening is such an elegant, simple, and effective way to build rapport, thereby creating an environment that is safe. Right? Give a little gift sometimes. You know, you can bring some sweets or snacks into the office. Give a referral, which could be a good restaurant to go to, a movie to see, or a holiday destination when we can travel. Tell a story is a nice way. Give good service, not just to your customer. You can give service internally to other departments and to your team as well. Pay a compliment, make it genuine, and also show genuine appreciation. So if you want to start with your teams, guys, the very, very first thing you can do is number 2, listen, right? And number 8, show genuine appreciation. They're the 2 little tips that will move the needle the most in terms of creating a safe environment. Yeah, show genuine appreciation. So however much you say thank you or you show appreciation now, just double it. Just double it and watch what happens, right? You will create such a safe and synergistic environment that people will be more willing to open up. All of that, guys, is going to create your psychological safety. So every person knows something better than me. My job is to listen long enough to find it and use it. So remember, don't let your ego get in control. There are things that you don't know that if you did know would help you on your leadership journey, would help your team to get into that growth zone, and is going to help you to grow to that next level, whatever that is for you. Okay, so in summary, guys, you know, how can we create a safe space for people to speak up, right? This is a little bit of the summary of some of the tips that you can begin to implement, like today, this afternoon, to create this safe environment for your team. So one thing is for sure, you must develop situational awareness, or in other words, empathy. You need to be able to, your teams, they are not robots. And yeah, I get it. You know stuff and you think quickly and you act quickly and blah, 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 blah. And we need to adjust slightly to the where the team is at, right? So when you use your empathy, empathy is simply being aware of the emotional state of other people that you're talking to. Now, in coaching, this is clearly one of the most important aspects and skills of a coach that you can have is empathy, not sympathy. Sympathy means you get sucked down into their vortex of negative emotion. We don't do that. What we do is we have empathy for them, right? So in a coaching conversation, for example, which could be your one-on-ones with your team members will be in a different emotional state. So how quickly you can move through a coaching conversation or a one-on-one will depend a lot on their emotional state. So what do I mean by that? In a normal coaching conversation out there in the world, some of your coachees, they're like an open book, right? You'll be 10 minutes into the conversation and they'll go blah, 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 blah. And they're going to tell you their whole life story, the good, the bad, and the ugly in the first 10 or 15 minutes. So what you've done in that environment is you've created a safe environment and to allow that person to speak up and fully express themselves. Now, other clients will be very, very different. They'll be more reserved. They'll be a little bit more, they will definitely want to move a little bit more slowly. Now, what you need to be careful of here is if you push too hard, they're going to shut down, right? They're going to shut down and they're going to say, nope, this is not safe. And then, it's like one step forward, 3 steps back. So it's up to you, especially with your one-on-ones, guys, whether it's just a monthly one-on-one conversation, a peer appraisal, giving feedback, right, is you need to have empathy. You need to assess the current situation where that person is at and then move at their pace that they're willing to move at. Some will move quickly. Some will be a little bit more slowly, right? So it's like a little bit of a dance, and you can only connect with people and build that rapport and build that safety is by having situational awareness of that individual. So in other words, you don't talk at them, you connect with them and you build that rapport, and then they open up, and it's like peeling back the layers of the onion so they can get to the root cause of whatever's going on in their life or their work. So that's important, right? Be mindful of your own body language and your own tonality. So our body language is communicating 55% of any communication that we're having moment to moment, right? So as I did before, the little eye roll, didn't say anything, but it says a lot, right? So be very, very mindful, guys, when you're building the rapport, to be aware of and mindful of your own body language and tonality, right? Because it makes a huge difference. Ask more questions, right? So to create a safer environment, you want to encourage people to speak up. You want to encourage them to share more. So if you're the one that's doing all of the talking all of the time, well, you're not creating a space that allows them to open up and express themselves, right? So if you're talking this much, then just wind it back a little bit and ask more questions to invite and encourage other people to share. Listen, as we've already covered. Listen to what is being said. Listen to what is not being said, right? And we talk about this with effective feedback, right? You've given some instruction to one of your team and they go, uh-huh. We know that they don't get it, right? So if we don't address that in the moment, they're going to go off and they're going to make a mistake. They're not going to do it to your expectation. So when they go, uh-huh, Yes, boss, I understand. You need to then listen to what is really not being said, which is really I don't get it. I have a question, but I'm scared to ask. That's what's really going on when they say that. Yeah. And observe their own body language, because they are communicating 55% with their own body language. So if you can see that there's something that they're holding back, it's up to you to create that safe environment to allow them to express their idea, their question, their concern, or their mistake. Private conversations. Often, especially imagine this, guys, if someone has just come from that toxic work environment and they've just joined your team, right? They're not going to be willing to share in front of the group, not yet, right? You need to pace them and lead them. You need to have that empathy to know, right, where they're at, and then you might observe their body language. They're wanting to share, but they don't quite feel safe enough to share it in the group. So then after the meeting, you can say, hey, John, do you have a couple of minutes? Great. Hey, listen, I observed it looked like there might have been something on your mind that you wanted to share. Is there anything you'd like to share? I'm totally open to hear any ideas, questions, or concerns that you might have. Beautiful. And they might say, no, I just ate something too spicy for lunch and it's kind of moving through my body and it's not real nice. Whatever they say, it's okay. You've shown that you are not a robot and that you care about them, all creating more rapport and a greater psychological safety. No judgment, we've covered that. Encourage them to speak up, right? Encourage it as much as you can. You definitely want to have a high emotional intelligence, yeah, because if you don't, you're not going to create a safe environment. And effective brainstorming. So effective brainstorming is one of my favorites, guys, when we talk about groups. So let's take a real quick look. Okay, great question, Gary. How does tone apply to a tonal language? Yeah, very good. So in a tonal language such as Thai, where there's 5 different tonalities and inflections, well, if you're a foreigner living in Thailand, then you might want to understand a little bit about that tonality. I'm talking about something a little bit more general here, Gary. So for example, I would not say something like this. Right, who's got some ideas? Hurry up and give me some ideas right now. The tonality is a little bit off. And so instead, I would say something like, okay, everyone, we're going to do some brainstorming now. And actually, let's go through this little slide here, Gary. Hopefully that'll help fill in the pieces of the puzzle here. So let's go through these real quickly, these steps on effective brainstorming, guys. Step number 1 is you want to pre-frame. And pre-frame, it's an NLP technique where you're simply sharing your expectations in advance. So a pre-frame might sound something like this. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the meeting today. Because we're a bit limited on time today, let's jump straight in. The purpose of today's meeting is that we're going to brainstorm the current situation that we had, that problem that was raised last week. And during this brainstorming, guys, this is a safe space, right? There are no bad ideas here. There are simply ideas. And our ego is checked outside the door. And I just want everyone, I invite everyone to share and speak up with any ideas, questions, or concerns, or any other learnings or mistakes that we had from that event. So please rest assured, this is a safe space, okay? Let's go. So guess what? That is a pre-frame. You've told them in advance what's going to happen. And by my tonality there, without knowing, the tonalities of Chinese or Thai, I've kept it light and I've kept it more energized as opposed to, that's what I mean by tonality there. So don't judge. There are no bad ideas, right? So remember, no rolling of the eyes or no over-congratulating one person all of the time. If you over-congratulate that same person all of the time, you're creating a favorite, right? And then it looks like you're a little bit biased, that's the golden child. So I want you to encourage everyone. So when someone shares an idea, and if you're writing it on a flip chart or a virtual flip chart, however you want to do it, this works equally as well virtually. Good job. Thank you. Yes, keep it coming. Let's go, right? You want to encourage them. Thank you. Great idea. I like to write quickly. So if I'm doing something with a team, whether it's my own team or when I get called into an organization to help them with problem solving or whatever, I like to move the process a little bit quickly. And so again, that'll happen in my pre-frame. I'll say, okay, guys, so we're about to do some brainstorming. We're going to do it nice and quickly. I don't want to overthink. I just want to hear ideas, right? Sometimes when appropriate, if safe, you can include an outsider because they can offer additional perspectives. And very importantly, guys, prioritize later. So check this out. Most brainstorming is a train wreck because through the brainstorming process, someone will speak up and they'll say, oh, Mary, come on, Mary, that's impossible. That would never work. Well, guess what? Number one, that's judgmental. Number two, that's criticizing. And guess what? By someone sharing an opinion like that, what they're doing now, they're trying to allocate importance of that particular idea. Well, that's not brainstorming, that's prioritizing. So you always want to keep the prioritization later as a very, very separate step to the brainstorming. So if you're leading the brainstorming session, if a discussion starts to happen, because guess what? Any kind of discussion inside of the brainstorming, what they're really doing is they're trying to prioritize. And there's a high likelihood that judgment and criticism will come out of that. So you'll say, okay, guys, hang on a second. We'll keep the prioritization later. Let's keep going with the brainstorming. Remember, the good, bad, and ugly, short-term, long-term, medium-term, whatever ideas you've got, let's keep going. Okay, Mark, what's your next idea? Yeah. And so you keep that flowing and you fill up pages and pages, however many pages you want to fill up. Then you go to the prioritization process. Yeah. Respectfully, right? That's now you can open up a dialogue and say, okay, Mark, can you tell us a little bit more about this idea? Great. Mary, can you tell me a little bit more about your, and then how do you prioritize? You take a vote. Democracy, right? That's inclusive and that works really, really well. So guys, you know, I've been living in Asia 20 years and I've heard so many Falang, that's what we call foreigners here in Thailand. I'm a Falang. I've heard so many Falang say, oh, they're so shy. They don't want to share. It's a myth. Maybe it's cultural. I don't know. One thing is for sure, certain countries in certain areas of this region are very hierarchical. And that hierarchy presupposes that, hey, I'm the boss, do as I say, don't question my authority. That is not psychological safety. So for the older generation, whether they're Asian or foreigner, a lot of older generation, not everyone, of course, but a lot of them have that like hierarchical, hey, I'm the boss, do as I say. So because the younger generation have often grown up in those kind of corporate environments, well, it's become the culture, doesn't mean that it's right, doesn't mean that it's correct. And if you want to change the culture, you need to be the change that you want to see in the world. So how do you do that, guys? You start with your own team, right? Start with your own team. And as you create that safe environment for them and you want to influence the culture of the organization, guess what? What do you need to do? Get promoted. That's right. When you get promoted, now you have the opportunity to change the culture within inside of the organization. But tend your own garden. Take care of your own garden first and get beyond that, right? That's how we change the culture of an organization. We can be respectful of the culture that we live in. And remember, the purpose of the business is to make money. The more money that you can make, the more people that you can take care of, the more people that you can keep employed. You don't need to lay people off. You don't need to put them on a furlough or fire them. So create the psychologically safe environment in your team first, and then expand it out from there. And can you have a direct conversation with your boss or the boss of the boss? Yes, you can. Practice giving effective feedback upstream. Do it with intelligence though. Do it with caution. Practice first. Awesome. I think there's a couple of quick chats there. How can you test that the team and the individuals feel safe? Great question, Howard. The only way you can test it is by doing it, right? So in NLP, we call it pacing and leading. So, and rapport is like a feeling. So pacing and leading is this feeling that you have of connectedness. So if you're pushing too hard, you'll get resistance. So very simply, guys, resistance in your client, and your client can be your subordinate or an actual client, resistance in your client is a lack of rapport. So if you're getting any form of resistance, you need to build more rapport. And as you build more rapport, you build more safety. And how do you know? When your team are willing to take that step outside of their comfort zone, when they come up to you with a question or a concern, something that they normally would not do, but they come up to you and ask it, congratulations, that's a win, right? So keep doing what you're doing. Authority is not psychological safety, exactly. Best to create a flat, open organization culture where all feel open to speak up. And by the way, if you are the GM, the CEO, or the MD, you have that opportunity to create that kind of culture. Trust is the most important in the team, exactly. Let the team brainstorm on how they should do to feel psychologically safe. So co-create their environment. Mike, very, very nice. Yeah, ask them, right? You say to them, hey, I attended this very interesting webinar on psychological safety, and I would love it, team, if we can do work on that together as a little bit of a project, right? Let's have a meeting and discuss opportunities. Check this video out first. Something like that. That's what we mean to be inclusive, right? Don't pretend that we know everything. Get their input. They will share things with you of what it means for them to feel safe. That's really important information for you to know. Psychological safety is a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking, right? Remember, she said to be vulnerable, right? So being vulnerable means you can open yourself up without fear of attack, right? So start with your little team first and then expand it out from there. How are we doing for time? Oh my goodness, fantastic. So what else can you do to support your teams to step outside of their comfort zones and speak up? If you have any suggestions, guys, please pop them into the chat box now. What else can you do to support your teams to step outside of their comfort zone, to move through the fear zone, the learning zone, to the growth zone, and be able to speak up? So if you have any other suggestions, pop them in there. One thing's for sure, I know what you could do. You could come along to our NLP Leadership and Coaching certification. It's a 4-in-1 international certification, including certified by the ICF. Regular investment, 79,900, only 50,000 baht. And that's coming up in July. You can join us here in Bangkok, or you can join us virtually from anywhere in the world. And we also have a payment plan as well for just 10,500 baht per month. That's for the NLP training. Great for communication and EQ. So if you'd like to develop your communication and EQ, this is the course for you. Or of course, you can send your teams along to it as well. And the other option, guys, is the ICF Leadership Coaching Certification Program. That's a virtual program that is run on the 17 and 18 of July. So again, you can join from anywhere in the world. There's some about 20 hours of pre-study, 2 days live virtual training, followed by some group coaching. We also run it here in Bangkok as well. 55,000 or a payment plan. So thank you, everyone. I'll send you a little email on the details of this. I hope that you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. If you don't mind to quickly turn your cameras on if you're still with us, I would love to see some of those smiling faces. Thank you all for joining us today. Any final questions before we leave? Be open to myself about everything, even the mistakes. Oh, thank you. Look at those beautiful smiles. Hey, Howard and everyone else. Thank you all very, very much. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I look forward to welcoming you to the next webinar soon. Take care, everyone. Ciao, ciao.